What do you believe is the greatest threat to the United States? We will live together as brothers or die together as fools. Milk. Internal conflict. Call is coming from inside the house on this one. Ben Franklin widely forewarned us back when about the biggest threat to ourselves. The founders gave us a republic, if we can keep it. It is our game to lose, and the road we're on we may very well not be able to keep it. The biggest threat to us, is us. The constant lowering of educational standards. Declining literacy, increasing willful ignorance. Lack of critical thinking skills. Ignorance and disregard for the Constitution, and democracy. Disregard for truth and facts, and readiness to generate or propagate disinformation. It's all good is not good. Lobbying. Continuing a trend of our country evolving to benefit the rich instead of the majority of people. I'd say at the moment, we're our own worst enemy. Propaganda and disinformation. It's the increasing allowance of anti-intellectualism. The idea that any opinion is a valid one due to the freedom of speech. Poor education. Proud ignorance as fact. Lack of critical thinking, particularly my ignorance is as valid as your knowledge. That chain of stupidity has become the marching drum of the future death squads. Propaganda and ignorance. The current war on education. The percent of our citizens that are confidently stupid. The United States. Misinformation. Gingivitis. The few elites that own everything in the country and cooperate to profit off our misery. They feed us shit, make us ill, inflate the currency, dumb down the population, pay us shit, charge ridiculous prices, and then feed us a bullshit culture war so we continue to fight amongst ourselves while they continue to do their work in the shadows out of view from the public. People who say they want to fundamentally change America without being willing to define exactly what that means. Authoritarian oligarch takeover. Misinformation driving conflict based on beliefs that are not factually correct. Apathy and a mental health crisis that is difficult to impossible to address. Citizens United. Selling off all of our land to private and foreign interests/investors. Attacks on, and devaluing of our education systems. Canada probably, we're too nice to be expected. Internal error. The United States. We're all just bickering. Russia's little plan to make us hate one another sure worked. Anti-intellectualism. It's the way we govern ourselves. Our current system includes the Electoral College, 2 senators from each state regardless of size, unlimited and secret financial contributions to politicians from wealthy individuals and organizations, and gerrymandering of voting districts. This allows for a very small number of people to control our laws and our economy. This is how we get restrictions of reproductive rights when a clear majority of Americans want to preserve them. It's how we get unfettered sales of firearms when most Americans want to regulate and control them. It's how we get an internal revenue service that audits small taxpayers but doesn't have enough money or personnel to go after major tax cheats. It's how we get a tax system that allows the nation's wealth to be accumulated by a small number of very wealthy people. It's how we decide that the vast majority of discretionary spending goes to our military instead of to education, housing, healthcare, and other useful things. It's how we get a healthcare system that is the most expensive in the world but has some of the poorest outcomes among industrialized nations and is completely inaccessible to a significant minority of citizens. A complete rethinking and redesign of our system of government would be needed to fix these problems, but the people who have the money and the power to make these happen are the very ones who benefit the most from the /////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////// if they weren't politicians and rich, would be considered too mentally gone to still work because of their age, yet they're running our country. It's definitely from the anti-democratic forces within the country and how they are taking advantage of the loose guardrails to gain power. But even if we can withstand this, I think we've reached a point where if we can't enact some reforms in our system of government, many of which require constitutional amendments, we'll be in steady decline anyway. We have systemic problems which are simply not being addressed because it's too easy for a minority to block all progress. Many reforms consistently have the support of over 2/3 of the American people: universal health care, gun regulations, taxes on the wealthy, spending more to invest in the people and infrastructure of our country. These have been issues for decades now and we haven't seen any but the most minimal action. Quality of life indicators, longevity, education, children and maternity health, economic mobility, etc. are declining for the first time in decades. These take a while to show their effects, but it also takes a while for the investments to bear fruit. I don't know if you guys are history buffs or not, but the biggest threat to the United States is social media and the media itself. We have let media drive such a wedge between us, be it politics, race, religion, sexual identity, or the myriad of other issues, that everyone identifies solely as that item for them and hates anyone different. People with different views are now the enemy. I hate that. I liked having friends with all kinds of views and interests. Disinformation and division that is spread by social media, absorbed by the uneducated, and likely made worse by exterior parties such as China and Russia. Gullible people falling for foreign manipulation.